everyone, and welcome to another episode of Turn Left. I am your host, Indiana's own Dana Black, coming to you live, yes, all the way live from Black Pearl Studios, where we talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things. Y'all see I got the Godfather tonight. I got the legend, but you know me, I got a rant. Can we just talk about how bad and pitiful of a nation leader you have to be to actually get impeached twice? Twice? You are so bad at your job, you got impeached twice? And listen, I know a lot of these Republicans out here want to come after Liz Cheney from Wyoming. I just want to remind some of those folks, her daddy shot a man in the face and got away with it. You might not really want to go there. You might want to think about your actions before you come after one Liz Cheney. That's all I'm saying. But there were 10 people, 10 Republicans that did vote for impeachment. And I got to say, I'm really happy to see that former Indianapolis Colts wide receiver Anthony Gonzalez from Ohio voted to impeach. It must have been all that time he spent wearing that horseshoe that brought him some luck and allowed him to think clearly and really divest and use his conscience to vote to impeach. So that's done. Now we've got the inauguration coming up. We have a lot of work we have to do here in the state of Indiana. So I tell you what, we're going to let the feds deal with the feds. I'm glad Congressman Carson is okay. They was trying to come for my man. I don't know why they were trying to come for my man. He never bothered nobody. I'm just saying. They ought to just love on Andre like we do. I'm so glad he's safe. I'm so glad his family is safe. And the yahoos are going to be yahoos, and they're going to do what they do. So our job is to look out for each other. And you know what? Bottom line is, I know everybody's like safety level is different. And I've been told that I am not afraid. I am afraid of a few things. Spiders, snakes, rodents. There are things that I am afraid of. But one of the things I am not afraid of is just to be me in my space. I am not going to let terrorists stop us or me from doing what we have to do. Find your comfort level. I know it's different for everybody. But as I remind everyone, if I could drive around the state of Indiana in a suit and tie, y'all can go in your neighborhoods and celebrate being a Democrat. That's all I'm saying. Don't let these terrorists win. Don't let these people scare you from doing the things that you like to do. They're going to go back under their rocks in just a minute. Or they're going to be buried under the rock with some bars because the feds ain't playing. So that was some messy stuff. We got the impeachment. We'll take over the Senate with Vice President Kamala Harris being the president, presiding over the Senate, being the tiebreaker. So amazing things are about to happen. Hopefully, now that we have all three branches, we might be able to focus on policies that help the people. That's what we got to do. So, and you know what, in Indiana, we are struggling because there's a supermajority and we don't own anything, but I got the Godfather who's going to help guide us. He's going to give us some tools to put in our toolbox so that we can move our state forward. Y'all, let me introduce to you. I had the chance to hear him speak, and he trained me in my first training session. I was down in Greenwood, and he articulated some things about what it is to be a great candidate. And I was in awe. Then I was like, who this brother? Right? Because, you know, this Indiana, you don't know. But let me tell you, he is the co-founder of the Winston Terrell Group. And so he does a lot of political consulting and things like that. But just to give you just a brief history, because we're going to let him share it, he managed the Kentucky operations for Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, back in 1992. In 1996, he was the deputy director for Governor O'Bannon's staff. And he was there for the successful campaign, so he knows how to get Democrats elected in Indiana. In 1999, he became the Indiana Democratic Party chair. He was the first minority to hold that any political director seat in the state of Indiana. So he's the first person of color to hold a political chairship in the state of Indiana. I want to, y'all give a good, fantastic, warm, turn left welcome to the legend, Robin Winston. Robin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana. Thank you. I bow down before you. Thank you.
Oh,
I
stop
mean, look
it.
what you're doing.
Stop it.
It's
Stop it. You paved the way. You paved the way. So a lot of party people who aren't necessarily party insiders don't really know you. They don't know your name because you're one of the behind the scenes kind of people. You're one of the in 2015 you were named one of the state's top influencers. Tell the people who you are and where you come from.
oh, I come from the Democratic Party. Um, my brother, now deceased, his name was McCoy. This gives you how deep the roots are. McCoy, Franklin, Delano, Roosevelt, Winston. So that
Whoa.
tells you how those roots came. I'm from Western Pennsylvania. I went to school at the University of Louisville. I stayed in Kentucky until 1993. I moved up here, worked in the Department of Commerce. I was the man in drive on 65, went up and down the road to Gary, Indiana, um, to deal with communities. You know, when you're this, the first thing people say is go out and meet this. So I went to Evansville, I went to Terre Haute, I went to Richmond, I went all over the place, meeting people. Met Hurley Goodall, God rest his, what he'd done up in Muncie, continuing to do what he's doing, and God bless him. And so, former state rep, former firefighter, has a statue in his honor in Muncie, Indiana. People all over the place are doing great things, and I was happy to be part of it. We steered money, federal and state grants to communities of color to make a difference. Go to Rushville, Indiana, and we worked with Bill Goings to make sure that there is a Booker T. Washington School preserved, which means a lot. Rushville, 5,000 people, 100 people of color. But the Booker T. Washington School is preserved. That's where people of color had to go. We went down in the middle of the woods in Carthage, which is in Rush County. That's where Bethel AME Church, the first African American AME church in Indiana, is. We preserved that. It's now stabilized as a thing. I serve on the Indiana State Museum Board, and was fortunate enough to chair the Capital Campaign Committee for the Levi Coffin House, which is over in West Central Indiana. 2,000 slaves made their way to freedom through there. If you go over there today, we built a $3 million interpretive center next door to the house built in 1847. We're working right now at the Indiana Historical Society. We've been able to have a fund that we give money to preserve African American history. So while politics is fun, our history, particularly in this state, is tremendous. We were able to, during my term, Karen Freeman Wilson became Attorney General of the state, double Harvard. Gary Native becomes our Attorney General of the state. We appointed record number of people to judgeships, record number of people of color to judgeships around the state. So, there's that adage of Booker T. Washington that says you really have two ways of using your strength. One is to push people down, and the other is reach out and pull people up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's incumbent upon us to do that. I moved here in 93. The only way I knew the way around Indiana was I looked at how big the orange was on what was then the highway map. It was big, I knew it was a big city. Small, I didn't know. So I worked in commerce. We got those grants out, we helped communities. But then in 96, I was asked to be the deputy director of Governor O'Bannon's campaign for governor. We were running against the then mayor of Indianapolis, a guy named Steve Goldsmith, who had about $13 million. We had about $7 million. We won the governor's race in 96, building a broad-based coalition. A woman by the name of Julia Carson was running for Congress that year. We were able to support her, and she definitely supported us and helped Frank O'Bannon. We carried Marion County. So when people tell you can't do it, we carried Marion County running against the incumbent Republican mayor of the city, and we carried it by 18,000 votes. 4 years later, we would carry it by 54,000 votes. We've made inroads across the state and tried to do what we could do there. So then 96, we win. 97, there's a new administration. I did not want to join it. I wanted to stay at the state party because, quite frankly, that's where my roots were.
Okay.
I had a person come up to me and say, I'd like to be an intern at the state party, but I can't afford to work for free. So we started an internship program and ran 22 African American young people through that program. Some went on to be elected later in life. Many are still active in the community. Some went into journalism. But we had 22 interns that came through the program because I got tired of people saying, Robin, I'd like to hire people of color with experience, but we don't have any on our staff. One was not an intern, but we hired him at Party. Darius Gardner is now vice president at IU Health.
Yeah.
In charge of government affairs and community relations. He went on to work for Julia Carson as a member of Congress. And then Darius continued to move up and do an outstanding job in this community, extremely respected. But right now on the cutting edge of dealing with IU Health and some issues they have. In 99, the then chair of the party, or 98 first, we had to, so maybe not remember this, but in 1996, we win the governorship and we win the Indiana House 50-50.
Okay.
So the Republicans prior to that election had changed the law to say if you ended up at a 50-50, they were so sure Goldsmith was going to win, that if you end up 50-50, whichever party wins the governor's office in 96 is the speaker is of that same party. So that's how we got Speaker John Gray.
Okay.
It was Frank Lewis O'Bannon, 50-50, that made John Gregg the first speaker.
Okay.
And then in 98, there was a young guy at the state party by the name of Dan Parker,
okay,
who was the caucus director for the House. Dan went on to be the state chair. But Dan was a caucus director. He and I talked just about every day, I think, sometimes more than twice a day. And we were trying to win the Indiana House in 1998. Students of history would know, or people that know this would know that in 98, Bill Clinton gets in trouble. People say, this is terrible. It's midterms. Clinton's in trouble. There's no way we win the House. Probably the Republicans are going to get control. We picked up 3 seats. We made it 53 Democrats, 47 Republicans. And we got John Gregg in officially as speaker, not because of the governor's race, but because Frank O'Bannon and the state party did a lot. Then check this out. Then Joe Andrew, who is the then state chair, is tapped by the Clinton administration to go be the Democratic National Committee chair.
Okay.
So then we get down, okay, who's going to replace Joe Andrew? And I was selected by then Governor O'Bannon, U.S. Senator Bayh, to be the chair of the party.
Wow.
Now, Dana, my first day on the job is we got to win mayor's races in Indiana, get a governor reelected, win the Indiana House. Oh, and by the way, pick an attorney general.
Yep.
So all in that first few months, we're getting underway. So Indianapolis had never had a Democratic mayor under Unigov, but that changed in 99. And we helped a guy named Bart Peterson get elected in 99, becoming the first Democrat mayor of this community because of Julia Carson, because of members of the city county council who are still active, because of the minority community voting overwhelmingly for Bart Peterson, and obviously lots of other people voting for him. But he becomes the first Democratic mayor in 32 years after Unigov. Then we picked up 67 mayors that year, 66 mayors, wow. 67 mayors wow. across the state. Of the 10 largest cities, we had 9 of them were run by Democratic mayors.
Wow.
So we put a premium on that. And then 2000 is the big deal. We got to win governor. Frank O'Bannon wins the first time by 97,000. I'm fortunate to be chair in 2000. And we win by 300,000. We win by 300,000 votes in 2000, hold the Indiana House, and we've got mayors elected at the local level. But that wasn't enough. We wanted to get people appointed, so Bob Rucker ends up on the Supreme Court, giving us an African-American male on the Supreme Court.
Wow.
We end up with an African-American attorney general. So we did all that. So there's a quick history of where we were then. So when I have people tell me we can't do this, we can do this. We won this state in 2008 with offices right here in this building, not just the primary offices, but field and legal were right here in this building with a guy named Barack Obama.
His name was Barack
He joined the
Hussein
field.
Obama.
Barack Hussein,
Barack
as they would always say,
Hussein.
Hussein Obama, and he wins Indiana. He wins Indiana, and he wins it for the first time since Lyndon Johnson in '64. But he wins Indiana, and he wins it. I think he carried 12 counties, but he carried 12 of 92 counties and went on to be elected president of the United States. In 2012, Glenda Sue Ritz runs against a guy named Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett has $1.8 million. Glenda Sue Ritz has a little over 200,000. Glenda Sue Ritz wins the election and becomes the last democratically elected superintendent of public instruction. So Frank O'Bannon won when he wasn't supposed to. Frank O'Bannon won when he wasn't supposed to. Barack Obama wins when he's not supposed to, and Glenda Sue Ritz wins when she's not supposed to. So why do I say all that to your viewers, and then I'll shut up and let you do what you do best, and that is ask good questions? I say all that because there's this thing out there that everybody's like, oh, we can't win. Yes, we can win. Yes, we can. We've heard that before. Yes, we can win if we work together. If we work together and if we make reasonable goals. But you know what everybody that I was talking about campaigned as? A Democrat. They were unabashedly proud to be a Democrat. Frank O'Bannon supporting labor. Glenda Sue Ritz supporting teachers. And Barack Obama clearly supporting people of color and doing what he could do to make a difference. So yes, you can win. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't.
And I'm so glad
I'll
you
shut up with
I'm so glad you broke it down like that, because I think we forget our history. We forget, how powerful we are in this state. I've never believed that we are a 70-30 state. We're just not, because there are too many people who care about other people. We just have to make sure that we're getting people involved to share our message. Talk about back then, how you were messaging who you were. Now, obviously, times are different, and I'm not suggesting that we do exactly what we did back then, but talk about the mechanics of how you were able to message who we were as Democrats to people all over the state.
It was hard. I will tell you that. First off, it was hard because you had a lot of people that, remember, Evan Bayh had won in '88, ending 20 years of Republican rule. So we had to convince people that we could carry on after Evan Bayh. And he paved the trail so that it made it a lot easier for then Frank O'Bannon, who's his lieutenant governor, to run. We talked about kitchen table issues. And I know that sounds contrived, but I remember speaking to a group of labor guys, and I said, so are you guys really concerned about prayer in school or prevailing wage? Are you really concerned about unemployment compensation, or are you concerned about whether or not somebody has a right to marry whomever they want to? Which one, in the final analysis, which one is going to put food in your refrigerator? Which one is going to make sure that you can buy a new car? Which one is going to make a real difference to you in a tangible way? And I still do that to this day. But back then we talked about jobs, good paying jobs.
Yes.
We talked about investing record investments in education. Please remember, Frank O'Bannon was the impetus for what we now have as our community college system. If there's any legacy, and that's why you see Ivy Tech at Bloomington tying in the Frank O'Bannon series every year. He really made a big priority for our community college program, which just think of Rushville with no Ivy Tech,
right?
Richmond with no Ivy Tech.
Right.
Think of some of these communities that don't have an institution of higher education without an Ivy Tech. Think of Sellersburg, no Ivy Tech. So he did that. That made a big difference. We obviously talked about taxes, but we talked about taxes from a different perspective. We didn't talk about keeping taxes low. We talked about what money would be used for.
That's
and
what
we addressed
I did.
it.
Oh man,
we made major investments.
That was the same conversation. That was the same conversation I had when I was running against Brian Bosma in that very red district. I didn't talk about, raising them or lowering them, but how to better use them. And that seemed to get people going. And that was 4 years ago.
Well, we did that 20 years ago and still do it to this day in other campaigns we're talking about. We really honed down on how the tax dollars are being used. Case in point, we've been fortunate to do school referendums across the state as a firm. If you explain that your investment is going to result in a newly renovated North Central High School,
My Alma.
or new schools in Washington Township, okay, well, and new schools in Washington Township, or a new elementary school in Pike, or new schools being renovated, or schools being renovated in Lawrence Township, or new athletic facilities in Beech Grove, all across Marion County, where we have been able to explain to people in a tangible way that they can see that this is how your tax dollars are used. People understand that. And then the last thing that we did on messaging is we took it to the streets. I mean, it was hard. It was hard. I would love to have had one of these in 1996. I'd have loved to have one in 98, 99. Mine were giant walkie-talkie. You know, I mean, to have had that and be able to communicate, that's why I don't understand now. While we have more opportunities to communicate, more devices than ever, we don't communicate more effectively. I mean, when we did when Frank O'Bannon traveled, it was, let's fax a release. Fax. Let's fax a release down the road. Let's show up. That was an innovative concept. Let's actually go where people are. Let's show up and let's have community meetings. Let's have town forums. Let's listen to people. Let's respond. And then let's travel. That's right. By car or sometime by plane to another community and do that. We can do that now. I mean, what I'm doing right now could be done community by community to talk about what we're doing as a party. Absolutely. It's very easy to do that. I mean, you don't even have to, you can be in Rushville and talk to somebody in Carthage and talk to somebody in Knightstown, talk to somebody in Richmond. You could cover a whole part of East Central Indiana from your living room.
Absolutely.
And do it. And guess what? You want something to drink? It's right there. You want something to eat? You go get it. I mean, it's you don't have to be out on a cold night by yourself doing that. Yeah. But we took our message out. And honestly, Dana, I remember calling back to headquarters. I remember this very well. I was driving through a town called Kirkland. Mm-hmm. I was coming back from Logansport, and I was coming down. I think it was Michigan Road, or what's it's not 47, but it was Michigan Road coming 121,
421, coming back down.
421, coming back down into Indianapolis. And I remember coming through a town, 47 was there, called Sheridan. Mm-hmm. And I after I crossed the light there, I called and I said, well, I just finished my 69th county level training. Wow. We had done we were in Logansport. And we didn't say, come to Indianapolis, find a place to park, find a place to stay overnight. We said, where are we going to do it? Well, we'll do it up in Logansport. We'll see you up there. Well, where are you going to do it? Well, we'll do it find a restaurant, find a place. We do the training. So you have to take your messaging out. In those days, we walked in with CD-ROMs that were the voter file, but we took our message out and we did training, and it was great. Yeah. But now here's one thing that we did. You asked me about messaging. I never forget it. Bill Stewart was the chair of the Clark County Party, and Clark County's down on the river in southern Indiana. For those
Jeffersonville,
Jeffersonville, and so I'm down there with Bill at the Tri-Shrine Club. Okay. And I said, Mr. Chairman, 15% of the people in your community are of color. I hope that we will continue to try to recruit those folks to your party. I went down about a month later and he introduced me to Faye Allen, who was then the assistant secretary of the Clark County Party that he had installed, to Dustin White, who's an attorney down there now, but Dustin was a young lawyer in the community, Billy Sue Smith, his mother, other people, Ron and Anita. He introduced me to all those folks. He infused because he wanted to make outreach to the party. Now, why is that significant? I'll never forget being in a town called Delphi. Delphi has a small contingent of people that are Hispanic. We developed, because I had somebody on our staff who spoke Spanish. This is before the state authorized form. We developed our own Spanish-speaking voter registration. Was not allowed by the state at that point, but we made our own template and took the state's form with us. And I went to a place that's closed now on the east side I went over to El Sol, took it back in the kitchen, and said, "Can you guys complete this?" They completed it, showed me how to use it. We took that up to Delphi. We registered around 300 and some Hispanic residents to register to vote that were citizens. Election day came, and about 200 and some voted. They elected at that point a Democratic mayor by less than like 30 or 40 votes, just on the surge of that. There are communities all over the state, particularly when you look at our former industrial giant communities, the Andersons, the Kokomos, the Richmonds, even in Shelbyville, basically the football, from Terre Haute all the way like this down to Bloomington, basically those communities in that circle. There are a lot of those Newcastles that have a contingent or a pocket of people of color that, if effectively mobilized by the party, can make a difference in local elections.
You are
If not, they stay home. So we did that. So that's some of the messaging.
You are definitely speaking my language. One of the things that I hope, I know we have reorg coming up, and whoever the next party chair is, one of the things that I hope we get a chance to do is a lot of what you talked about. I mean, I hear a lot of people say we need Stacey Abrams. No, we don't. We just need the movement, right? We understand what it was that she did, and she met people where they were, and there were multiple organizations that did it, right? But one of the things, I love hitting the highway. Yes, COVID got me building studios in my house, but I still love going to these small communities down in, Southern Indiana and Switzerland County, or going up to Cass County, because there's something about the energy that you get from being in person with people. And they see, when you show up to these small communities, when you leave Indianapolis and you show up in their small communities, they know that you care. You care about their communities. And it's the simple things. Yes, big tech and data and all of those things are important. But if you're not willing to sit down face to face with people and listen to them moan and groan, because you're going to get that, right? But also listen to what they're having to say about what they need in their community. One of the things I'd like to see us do, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it, is we are right now. There seems to be this notion that all we are is a political organization that asks people for votes, or we ask them for money. I would like to see us and change that around a little bit. Instead of asking people for things from us, I would like to see our party literally turn into the Boy Scouts and say, how can we help you? There are so many people who are struggling right now that could use a helping hand. And just think, if we pulled all those, what was it? A million people voted for Biden. We get those million Democrats dispersed all over the state, helping people. Now we don't have to beg for votes. We don't have to beg for money, because they're going to be like, oh, that person was there when I needed them the most. Talk about what it means to really be engaged in the community, and not just talking about messaging, but being servants in the community.
I'll give you an example. I looked at some pictures the other day. They were on CD-ROM. I was going through my safety deposit box, and I kept seriously, on CD-ROM. We're high tech. But at Kennedy King Park, 17th and College, where Bobby Kennedy gave his historic speech the night that Dr. King was killed, and a young John Lewis was standing right beside him, or not right beside him, but was standing there. Kennedy King Park, our staff went over. We called the Parks Department. We got approval, and we planted trees. All those trees that when you walk up to the Kennedy King Memorial, there's trees there. There's trees on the other side. I think that day we planted like 70 or 80 trees.
Wow. In
that park. We had post hole diggers donated to us by the Parks Department. We got the trees donated by a landscaping firm. Our staff, many of whom, they were okay, but they were out there digging, but it was different. They were out there planting trees. And you know what, at the end of it, I remember that. They remember that. The community remembers that. And people were standing around looking at us like we were Martians or something, like, what are all these people doing here? They thought, some of us, I think, probably thought we were city employees, but we said we had T-shirts on and other things that said Democratic Party. We did that. We showed up and raised money for the United Way. We United Way campaigned in our office to give money to the United Way. Now this one, a little bit different, but a Boy Scout troop called us and said they were collecting cans. I don't think they thought they were going to collect as many cans as they thought. But all the rule on, let's just say, soft drinks and other adult beverages that we had at the party were donated to these Boy Scout troops. They left out of there with 5 or 6 garbage cans full of cans, but here they were, Carmel Boy Scouts, going downtown with their mom to say that the Indiana Democratic Party was donating toward their Boy Scout troop. So we expanded that. We were on the plane in the morning to the Frontiersman's breakfast in Gary. I mean, I don't even know what time it was, like 7 in the morning. We're on the plane on our way to Gary to that community breakfast where the governor spoke. We covered everything that we could. We walked in parades. We supported fire departments. Whenever people got a grant, my business partner, Pat Terrell, worked for the governor's office at that point. We always highlighted grants that we gave to community. You may laugh at it, people may laugh at it, but a pumper truck to the Winchester Fire Department is a big deal.
Yeah, yeah.
And so don't underestimate that. But we explained to people, we worked commensurate with what government could do to make a difference. So often, Dana, we have people that explain what they're doing, but it's so big. Mm-hmm. People can't get their hands around. Mm-hmm. We allocated $17.4 million for college prep courses. They can't get that. They can't. That's like, people can't understand that. But if you explain, Mrs. Taylor, your grandson is going to school on a 21st century scholarship because they have good models and get good things from 7th grade on. And this is what government can do. And guess what? Now they're going to get $10,000 a year to go to Ball State. And if they go there, if they want to, it's for all 4 years. And they can graduate without any tuition coming to you. That's what you can do when you tie government to that. I'll add one last thing. Mm-hmm. Didn't particularly like me when I did it, but the good thing about working within Governor O'Bannon was we were the political wing over here. He was the government wing over here. We worked together a lot. So he started a program for first-time home buyers. And as our recommendation, why don't we give them, instead of just here's, dot matrix in those days, dot matrix letters saying you've been authorized for a loan, why don't we enclose a letter from the governor and this after re-elected, explaining to them that they had been a first-time home buyer and encouraging them to go ahead and, watch this, become a first-time home buyer and spend a few more minutes taking time to register to vote. Over 80,000 of those kind of letters went out.
Wow.
Because we connected government with them. They knew that, because all too often people say, well, I think part of the problem that we have is that people don't tie government mm-hmm. to what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's our biggest disconnect right now. People don't make the tie. We make the tie that it can be taken away from you by government, but we don't spend enough time talking about what government can do in a positive fashion. So to answer your question, I think part of that, when you're down there with Don Spellmeyer in Evanston, Indiana, at night, and you're in Spencer County, 3.5 hours away from home, and your best lighted road is when you get outside of Spencer County, and they know that you leave. It's like they're making you feel like John Glenn going on a moon. I'm going on a rocket shot. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, Godspeed, good luck getting home, Robin. Let us know when you do, because they know you have a 3-hour drive.
Yeah, yeah. I love it.
Say, I'm staying in Evansville for the night. I'm just going to go to the casino. No, it's 3 hours back from.
Absolutely.
And they know that you got home at 12 o'clock. And from traveling, you've done it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not like the local dinner for the party is held at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
No.
The local dinner for the party is at 6 and 7 o'clock at night, yes. Their time.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. And if you're going to Evansville or Lake County.
I want to say this real quick. This is fundamental, and I've seen you do it. Because you know what, Dana? I was in my office one Saturday, and I heard Dana Black's voice.
Everyone hears my voice.
But I heard you over at the Catholic Center mm-hmm. speaking mm-hmm. about equality. Mm-hmm. I heard you. I mean, I heard it through the glass. That's how loud you were. But you were there on a Saturday talking about equality because there was a drive-in protest about what was going on in inequality relative to some elements of the Catholic hierarchy.
Yeah, yeah.
And you were there.
Shelley Fitzgerald.
I'm sorry?
Was that Shelley Fitzgerald's event that we had
Well,
that. Yeah,
I just know you were down here with the group
yeah.
right here at the Catholic Center.
Well, it's
I remember.
important. Yeah, it's important.
I know,
I'm
my point of that is you were there.
Yeah, and I'm not so important that I can't lend a little bit of my time to help other people. I know one of the reasons why I even started Turn Left wasn't to hype me up. After I ran for office, I was like, well, there were some things that somebody could have done to help me. So instead of complaining about those things, I'm just gonna do them. And one of the things it was like people didn't know who was on the ballot. Well, I'm gonna take this great big old mouth of mine that you can hear through walls, and we're gonna get these candidates to get some exposure all over the state so people know who they are. And we essentially turned every show into a mini fundraiser for these candidates. You know what I'm saying? And it's the little things. You don't have to do something so grand. And I'm not so fantastic that I can't go anywhere in the state and lend my voice. That's what I do, right? Some people are great at organizing. Some people are great at fundraising, which we're going to get to. I'm the hype man. I'm the one that gets the room going, but I talk about the issues that are important because you said that. Tying government to politics. I usually call it policies. Same thing, right? It's the policies that impact your lives. I love it. So those are some great ideas. The tree planting. I'm writing that down. That's one of my missions. We're gonna plant
Yeah,
trees.
go look. Go look. The trees are there, and I got the photos to back it up. We were all out there. We did it. We had lots of water. We were out there probably about 9 or 10 hours doing that work.
Okay.
The trees are there now. And because there was no shade. If you remember that park,
Yeah.
there's no, I mean, take away the trees, there's no shade.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then you come and see the Kennedy King Memorial. There's no place to even get a respite to get underneath the shade tree. Now there's shade trees all over that park.
That's good
we
work.
did that.
The Indiana Democratic Party did that, and that's what we can be. We can be servants in the community. Now, a lot of the stuff that we talk about, Boss Robin, it still takes money. Everybody. One of my biggest fears is fundraising. I know that it's a fear that I have. It's a struggle that I have. No matter what it is, I literally put a link saying, "Hey, if you like Turn Left, could you click on that link?" I'm real passive with my ask, right? Talk about talk. We would love to get money out of politics. We would love to take it out and make it so that everyone honestly could participate without having to fork over a lot of money. But talk about fundraising, how important it is, and different methods, more than just making the phone call. There's other ways to raise money. I think the Stewart Speaker Series, I think that is like the most fantastic fundraising thing that I've seen in a long time. You're not just giving money, but you're getting something from it. I would love to see a Democratic Party Speaker Series all over the state where, this quarter it's in Fort Wayne, this quarter it's in Evansville. And then we actually get to attract people who are not necessarily party people, but they would want to come hear a Nancy Pelosi or I don't know. I can't think of anybody right now, but they would love to come hear these leaders, right? Talk about fundraising and the impact of that for our party, especially since you mentioned also all of those races you won. You didn't have as much money as those other guys.
No, we didn't. Well, first off, I'll just say this about money. I've seen far too many candidates be told go raise money. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like if you're at the ocean and there's a buoy way out in the water and they say swim to that buoy, but you're not aware that on the other side there's a boat pulling it further away from you as you get closer. Mm-hmm. I think what I try to do as chair, and even before chair, every campaign we do, even the ones now, we bring in the folks impacted and do a budget with them.
Okay.
Because for me to impose a budget on them, and you don't have buy-in means you don't have buy-in from day one. We had to do that with Frank O'Bannon. I mean, he had to understand how much a television ad costs. Mm-hmm. He had to understand how much it costs to buy TV and those. At a smaller level, when you say to a school district, if you're going to have a volunteer political action committee, this is how much yard signs cost. Do we think we can get 500 in the ground? Mm-hmm. Oh, you do? Do you think you can get 1,000 in the ground? If you do, then it's going to cost this much for this many yard signs. Okay, so you build a budget, but fundraising is an interactive process involving the people that you're trying to say. Far too many candidates are told by consultants, you have to raise this much money to be viable. No, you don't. You have to build a budget that makes you act. When we met with Glenda Ritz, we said, Glenda, I never forget, we met with her at McAllister's on Meridian. And we said to her and her husband, Gary, you probably are not going to be on television at the level that Tony Bennett's going to be. Mm-hmm. Can you live with it? Mm-hmm. And if you can live with that, then we can build a budget that will get you coming out of the convention that will make you a viable candidate. Same way with Frank O'Bannon. When Tom New, who's still the most brilliant strategist in the state, I learned so much from that man. We call him Yoda, and he should be a guest on a future show of yours.
Absolutely.
Chief of staff for Frank O'Bannon twice, double Harvard, public school teacher in Chicago, brilliant man. So anyway, Tom, when he did the budget for Frank O'Bannon, he did the budget based upon going backwards from election day with our media buy. Because we had a very esteemed candidate at that point, state senator for 18 years, lieutenant governor for 8 years. And the last thing we wanted him to do was not be on television in the last 2 or 3 weeks of his campaign because he had listened to some consultant who said be on television in mm-hmm. July or August. Mm-hmm. When a dog, a cat, and a bird is watching TV.
Right.
We said be on television the last 3 weeks at a goodbye. Guess what happened? Then we showed him the budget. Well, he raised the money to be on the last week, then the next week. By the time that he finished, he was on television starting in the middle of August at what we assured him would be an outstanding buy level that nobody could get around. Even with Glenda, what happened to her the last 3 weeks, we were up on television at the same level as Tony Bennett. Right. That's because we watched one time, Tony Bennett spent $10,000 on one ad for 30 seconds on an NFL football game on a Sunday night when I think it was like Atlanta versus New Orleans, where literally a dog, a cat, and a bird was watching at that point, but they spent $10,000 then. So part of campaign finance is budgeting. The other part is outreach. And this is what we've been doing, and I've been advising people. I just talked to two people that said they might, or one person said they might run for state chair. I said, we have, thanks to a guy named David Galvin that works with us, we have the voter file, built our own. He added in all these other variables. But if you ask me right now, Dana, I want to reach white, college-educated women living in Geist on Jib or Sale Court that are Democrats that have a household income of over $250,000 and a home value of over $400,000. We can give it to you. Mm-hmm. That information is available now. So here's what I tell people all the time. Right now, there is somebody living in Knightstown, or as I told Jeff Chittister, living in Porter County. Right now, there is a Democrat living in Porter County that's never missed a primary, never missed a general, but maybe they're not part of the invite for the local party for its fundraisers. They should be.
Absolutely.
Because in their own unique way, they got a IBEW sticker on the back of their truck. They're a union person. They're a steel worker. They're supportive of that. And in their own unique way, they're voting. They're voting. Mm-hmm. And we should be enlisting them. So the first place to look when you run in the future is to look at the voter file. Mm-hmm. Because there are rock-hard Democrats that are there. Now, a couple other things. Commensurate with that is you got to look at their propensity or their capability of giving.
Right.
I laugh sometimes, Dana. I'll be invited to a fundraiser for $50 a head at the Firefighters Hall and $5,000 a head at Prime 47. Mm. So clearly, whoever the strategist is, isn't looking, if it's for the same candidate, okay, now let's think about this. If I want to see the candidate, $5,000 over here, $50 over here. Okay, so if you don't kind of do better targeting, it's not one size fits all.
Right.
So there's number three. So first, budget. Secondly, use what's available. Third, how you present it. But here's the biggest one, I think. I hear you say this. You shouldn't be in this if you don't like people.
Come on.
I'm going to say one more thing. You shouldn't be in this if you don't like people. If you have a disdain for people from a certain region of the state, You and I have been around enough. We've heard disparaging remarks about Lake County.
Which
We've heard disparaging remarks about Southern Indiana. If you have that disdain, you show no love. Please just get out.
Get out.
Because people will see that in you. If you are in a county and you can't wait to get out of there and you're being extremely disingenuous, people will see that pretty easily.
Absolutely.
Okay? So as much as we talk about driving through Kirkland and Sheridan and driving through Spencer County and having to face coming out of what is it, the Eagles Nest or something for the 3rd District party for the Democratic Party, and you're leaving at 10:30 at night, and you got to make your way back down 69 at night in the dark in the winter. If you don't like people, you shouldn't be doing this. So one of the main things is I advise people all the time. So let's just take this. I don't forget when I went to my first fundraiser here in '94. I had as much money as everybody else in the room, but nobody knew me. And I kind of stood in the corner. Of course, I stood out because I was about one of 3 people of color in there. But nobody ever came over and said hello. Hardly the candidate did. But I had my little, I think it was $100 check, and I was just as proud, and I had spit shined my shoes and starched my shirt, and I was just as proud to be there as anybody else. But most of the time, other people in the room just laughed and talked with each other. Now, because I'm persistent, I didn't let that deter me, but somebody else might have walked away and said, the heck with this. I'm not going back to that.
Right.
So that would be my last thing, is you got to like people to be effective in fundraising. The data is there now. You can use it. It's important that you use the existing voter file, obviously. The budgeting is there. Now, the other thing as part of this is you got to make it logical. Okay? Make it logical and keep it real. When I buy radio time, I try to make sure that I buy radio time that's going to reach the audience I'm trying to reach. You could probably drive around this community and see billboards up, and you're like, why do they have a billboard for that over here? Because you've entrusted consultants who they gladly will put up your billboard, but your billboard may not resonate with the part of town that you have it up in.
Right.
So part of that is some oversight on your side, but those would be the areas, not the one.
Yeah. So here we are, Chairman John Zodi has decided that he's going to step down. He's not going to run again. And I got to say, I'll say it again.
How long has John been chair?
This will be his 8th year. 8 years. He had 2 terms. Yeah, that's a long time. And I was fortunate enough that, he took a chance on the nobody, right? The somebody that ran against the Speaker of the House, got they behind beat. But I'm going to go ahead and give her a chance and let her be the deputy chair and let me grow this thing. And so I am very grateful for what he's done. But that era is now done. I know that you are always about 10 years ahead, Robin. Talk about the direction our party needs to consider going if we are going to reclaim. And I'll give you an example. One of the things that drove me crazy in 2016 was that I went to a lot of union halls, the Steelworkers Union to be specific, and I gave a speech. I was invited to come, and I noticed how many Trump stickers and, Republican stickers were out on these trucks and cars, and I'm like, don't these folk know that this party is working very hard and staying up day and night to take your ability to collective bargain away from you? Why don't we know this? Well, we messed up as a party, right? We messed up by not making sure that we reached out and had those conversations. I know we're talking about reaching out to communities, but talk about as we transition from Chairman Zodi to whoever the next chair is, the things that particular chairman should consider, or chairwoman, should consider going forward. Because we don't have nothing. We don't have no statewide. We in the super minority in both chambers, but there's also glimmer of hopes in places like, in Evansville. I mean, I'm sorry, in Zionsville. Yeah, in Evansville with Alexander Burton, president of council down there, and Emily Styron up in Zionsville. Zionsville's got a Democratic mayor, and we have a Democrat on the council in Carmel and in Fishers. Talk about, there's bright spots. Talk about what that party chair needs to think about moving forward.
Okay, I listened intently to what you said, and I heard you talk about steelworkers or people, whoever you were
Mm-hmm.
talking to, not being aware of what we were doing for them.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is, and I've asked someone that's asked me to help, and somebody else that asked me in my opinion, because there's a group out there that's trying to get the opinion of people of what we should have. We had a living testimony to what the party had done when Frank O'Bannon was alive, because he was a state senator. His dad had run for lieutenant governor. There were vestiges that he could reach back to. It's a shame that when we have a dinner that Lee Hamilton, over 90 years old, I believe, member of Congress, voted for the Civil Rights Act, campaigned with LBJ, voted for the Voting Rights Act, is not recognized at our dinners. That Birch Bayh, God rest his soul, that the reason that there's volleyball teams for young women and basketball teams for young
Title
women
IX.
and expansion of Title IX is because of Birch Bayh. That his son, who went on to be obviously governor and senator, led to the reform of patronage in government, got rid of it, reformed license plate bureaus, got those things. That Frank O'Bannon did the community college system. That Joe Kernan and Barron Hill were courageous enough, and Brad Ellsworth, to vote for the Affordable Care Act so we would have it. We have a legacy of winning. Alex Haley once said, the history is written by the winners. We have a legacy of winning. We should start first with revisiting that history. When I was chair, we had 2 years in a row at French Lick, between people staying up all night and having fun. We had 2 books that we made a Jeopardy show out of. One was about Tom Taggart, who was a Democratic operative in the 30s. The other one is about Larry Conrad, who was a Secretary of State. Those books were written, folks were quizzed on them. At the luncheon, we had a quiz show. We made it like a quiz show. But what that really was doing was our younger folks were reading about our past. Our people in the ballroom that were sitting there for the thing actually knew some of these people and were quietly mouthing the answers to the questions. But it tied our history to our future. I don't believe that you can go just moving ahead with a future without a review of your past and where you've been. So whoever the chair is has got to revisit, not the glory days. I'm not talking about straw hats and banners and all that. I'm talking about tangible policies that still exist to this day. The 21st Century Scholar Program that some non-African American student right now living in Noblesville is getting, or Jeffersonville or Hofstad or wherever you want to pick, is getting that 21st century scholarship, totally unaware that Evan Bayh blazed the trail to get that done. Totally unaware of that. Okay? We should revisit and remind people of that. That should be at the bottom of every social media outblast that we have, should be bullet points. Democrats have, done this, done this, done this. I mean, go ahead and take credit as LBJ and the people that did Medicare. Go ahead and put that on there. Put those things on there and revisit the past.
I like it.
So that we can build for the future.
I like it.
Because without that, you're evaluating a very narrow funnel of, because you'll hear me, much to the chagrin of some people, I always say this. I was fortunate to be state chairman when we had the last Democratic governor. I want people to know that we did win Indiana. And although I'm older, I'm not like, old.
No, you're
so
still
I'm
spry.
just saying, I'm still there. But anyways, you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
I just didn't get rid of it. That's one. That's one thing. Second one, I heard something that is ominous because I don't want you to ever repeat it again. You're not done. That's another mistake we made. I caught staff when I was chair. Somebody was no longer a precinct committee person. They deleted them from the voter file. From the database. No. One thing that I've called for is to put the former chairs in an ex officio, non-voting group on a central committee. If for no other reason, you've got former chairs that have, one's the mayor of Indianapolis. That's not bad. Right. You got former chairs that have got considerable experience that could, if a state chair leaned over and said, could you all help me raise some money, or could you help in this, or what would you advise? Put us in an ex officio role. Don't kick people to the curb with your experience. That's wrong, because guess what? Once again, it goes back to what I just said. People looking to the future have no relevance to the past. The second, the bigger area is don't run away from being a Democrat. I mean, don't run away from it. I mean, I'm not saying go downtown and want to fight everybody that's going to be there for a Trump rally. That's in their mind, that's their constitutional right. Let them do it. Let them do it. As long as it doesn't turn violent and destroy a building, let them do it. Let them do it. But at the same vein, there's so many other people that we can touch base with that can expand our party's base. That same steelworker probably needs to realize that the reason they can go to work and there's an OSHA to make sure that a hot bucket of lava doesn't get poured on somebody is because we fought for workplace safety conditions. That same steelworker needs to realize some of those things. And then conversely, the non-democratic traditions, because when I was chair, I reached out to every United Way possible. I said, I know you all cannot be political, but I purposely did this to remind them that in a lot of cases, some of their biggest donors to their United Way were people of labor. I mean, when you go through the Chrysler plant, when it was open and working full time and still is now in Kokomo, when you were doing that, I mean, when they collected for the United Way, that was a lot of money for Howard County's United Way. So the coalition building, Hurley Goodall, I mentioned him earlier. I never forget. He and some people were in Muncie, and they had a banker there that was intransigent and very anti-labor. This is his own story. But they went down and reminded the banker that there was $4 million of Borg Warner UAW money in his bank. And amazingly, the banker became one of their best allies as they moved forward in Delaware County. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you have to remind people, while you're out here on this end castigating us, or as when I spoke to some folks at Anthem a few years ago, I'd said, many of you in this room are writing insurance because of the benefits and the programs of labor that are not only doing dependent care, they're extending to family members and everything else. And who's writing the insurance? You are. So when you're walking around saying we need to be right to work, when that plant closes, Mr. Man, you will be unemployed because there's no more there's no more health insurance because that plant is not offering it. Yeah. So going back to what I said at the onset, kind of like a comedian coming back to what I said at the beginning, the linkages are here that we have to build on for the future. I really ask that somebody like you do not leave the party.
Oh, no, I ain't going nowhere.
I asked Cordelia, look, 317-926-2686, still an old number, okay? I asked Cordelia, don't leave the party. You're 84 years old. Well, I'm 84. I just had a birthday on January 12th. That doesn't mean anything. You've got so much institutional wisdom that can impart. We spend too much time jettisoning it. So I really hope that we'll build upon our future, looking back at our past to move forward. The last thing is, let's make realistic goals. I mean, we're not going to pick up 31 seats in the Indiana House in 22, particularly after redistricting. So let's make realistic goals of where we can. And then let's focus on them and let's enlist some people to do that. So those are the things that I think the next chair should do. I think it can be, you have one big advantage. You do have a Democratic administration in Washington, a Democratic Congress, and a Democratic Senate that will be doing some things that you can tout back here that your party's doing to benefit people at their kitchen table.
I love it. That is so solid. You just wrapped it all up and made it so sweet. And I appreciate you saying reach back to the past. I received a phone call this past weekend from Vi Simpson. And if anybody knows anything about me, I'm pretty much an elected official groupie. So to have someone like Vi Simpson call me, like I didn't give her my number, but she called me and she gave me a task to do. She, and so one of the coolest things, and I'm not a young chick. I'm 50, so I ain't young. But one of the things that is exciting for me, is to have someone who came before say, okay, I see something in you, and I need you to continue on with this race that we got to do. And that's kind of like what I try to do too with the young people. I try to hang out with IYD because hey, they got all the energy. I just take it all. I just suck it all up for myself. They get all the energy and they have all the enthusiasm, and it's our responsibility as their seniors to provide them the necessary tools in their toolbox. But when I get someone who's got history and she reaches back to me and says, Dana, I need you to do this, man, I'm over the moon. I just love the fact how you. Oh, I'm not going anywhere. It's in. They didn't tell me that getting involved in politics, running for office was going to be like one hit of crack. Nobody told me that. I am hook, line, and sinker. My goal is to elect as many Democrats as I can across the state with the medium that I have, with the platform that I have, and make it bigger. In fact, I'm even in Miguel Hampton down in Clark County, and Mark up in My Labor Radio up in Fort Wayne. It's my goal is like, okay, I'm not the only person talking to Democrats. Let's share this love. There's enough for everybody. And the fact that I finally had a chance to sit and talk to the legend. I'm telling you, I can sit back and just listen, because you bring in the fire. Y'all heard it. We got all the tools we need to help people in the state. All we got to do is talk to them, reach out to them, help them out, help improve their communities, and stop just with our hands out. I'm excited and pumped and ready to go. Man, we're going to...
Thank you. I am too.
I'm pumped.
And we will be in about another 5 days watching somebody get sworn in, so that'd be great.
Bruh, can you talk? I mean, Joe Biden, you've been around. You probably, I got the picture of you up, so I know you've already met him and you've already done that. But talk about, you started this conversation about minority communities and the impact that you've had as a black man on our Indiana Democratic Party. Talk about what it means for you to see Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. Talk about it.
Well, it makes me proud, first off. It makes me proud in so many ways. And by the way, presidential recommendation, Jamie Harrison to be the Democratic National Committee chair. I mean, that's
huge.
That's huge. So, and all of our friend, although I don't know her, the long-term admiration for Stacey Abrams. So you got to remember, this is not just... The good thing about campaigns and politics is very finite, as you know from running. It's, did you win or did you lose? Mm-hmm. There's no, with the exception of some people not believing it now, it's did you win or did you lose? And at the end of the day, Stacey delivered Georgia.
Delivered it.
Jamie did better than anybody thought and did well against Lindsey Graham. And Kamala Harris, it means so much. I have been on calls with her, not me, Robin. I've been on team calls with her, and just the enthusiasm of people, whether they are Asian Indian audiences, women of color audiences, those of us who weren't women of color or Asian Indian being on the call with her, the sheer enthusiasm. I think it was a hidden enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. I really think there was a hidden enthusiasm for her this time, that people were going to go out and vote to make history in so many ways. Yeah. Missed in all this is she's the first female vice president.
Come on, bring it.
Okay, the first female. So all the women for changers, we got the first female vice president. Okay, not just the first African American. We got the first female. So when you say, here's what I usually say, Dana. When people say, well, Robin, what's the Democratic Party done? I usually say this: do you have an hour and a half?
Oh, come on.
So I think that we should be proud of what she's about to do. Now, thanks to Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff, who at 33 is the youngest U.S. senator in history since a guy named Joe Biden.
Come on.
Is now going to be in the U.S. Senate. And she'll come down if for some reason we have such gridlock that she has to break the vote, she'll come down and break that vote. But keep this in mind: if you were to close your eyes, or if this had been a game show, and you had said, name the state with an African American and a Jewish person as their U.S. senator, most people wouldn't have colored in the Georgia bubble.
Not at all.
So I close this part of it, if I indeed am closing, by saying, forgetting where New York, if it can happen here, it can happen. No, Georgia has now proven if it can happen anywhere.
Absolutely.
Because they remember the history of this. Runoffs were designed to keep us from being the nominee. The reason that Georgia and those states have runoffs is because they did not want a minority candidate to get 40% of the vote, 38% of the vote, 32% of the vote, and be the nominee. Keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. Because if it had been the old system, election night, Purdue would have been their nominee, I think. He got more votes than
he did. Yep. Both Republicans did.
No. Warnock got more votes on election night. Because remember, she split the vote.
She split, yeah.
Because Doug Collins ran for Senate with Trump's backing against her. It would have been Reverend Warnock and Purdue. But because of their system that was designed to make sure that people of color could not be the nominee, because we didn't get voting rights there until 65, could be the nominee, their system is contrived to make sure that you had to have a majority. So then when they went back and redid it again, we end up with the majority in both seats. So we're still, and then missing, the element of history is that we have to continue to remember that the Electoral College was designed that we were 3/5 of a person in the count. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So some of these states that came across, Georgia, for example, it's really the vestiges of what was encountered on trying to make sure we couldn't get elected. So for those folks to be elected is great. For Kamala Harris to be the Vice President of the United States, she's going to be outstanding. And our city's too big. We're 16th largest city in the country. I believe that one or two, if not both of them, will be here over the 4 years that they're there. And it will demonstrate to people the kind of outstanding talent that we have. We just have to get through the transition and the next few days, the inauguration, him taking office. And then in the middle of all this, which no one's really talked about at this point, on the 18th, we celebrate Dr. King's birthday.
Come on now.
It's fitting that we're celebrating his birthday, and we're putting Kamala Harris into the White House as first female vice president, who happens to also be African American and Asian Indian.
Yes, that's how we gonna end it, on a high note, just like that. Y'all have been listening to the smooth styles of the legend Robin Winston, who has been our former state party chair, understands how to win. Y'all need to contact him. I'll make sure I put his link up if you need some consulting work, because he does like consumers. And if you want to win, this is who you need to talk to. Indiana's own Dana Black, turn left. This is what we do. We bringing you all the information you need as Democrats so that we can do things in this state. Next week, we're going to have a constituency caucus party up in here. We've got IDAC, the Latino caucus, the IYD, Stonewall, Labor. We got all of our constituency caucuses. We're going to run down some of their plans, what their 2021, 2022 looks like, and more importantly, how you can be involved in any one of these constituency caucuses to help move our agenda as Democrats. So, Indiana's own Dana Black, who says it's an off year? There just aren't any elections, that's all. I'll holler at y'all next week.